coffee make you feel good, baby? Everybody loves a little coffee in the morning, at least like 70-80% of Americans, whatever the real number is. A lot of people love it, right? Is it good for you? Is it bad for you? We did a video on that. But did you know that it differs how much caffeine you can have in a day safely, at least according to a few sources, based on your age? Okay, and there's a major difference here. So I wanted to talk about this because we had somebody who was under 18 asking why they're not able to get energy drinks and all these things and bop. And we'll get all into it. So as far as age distribution goes, according to different associations like the FDA or the American Academy of Pediatrics, they say adults, that is people 19 years and older, can safely have up to about 400 milligrams of caffeine in a day. And we'll talk about that in a little bit here because I think, that's a little bit different and it's too generalized, okay? Because there are beneficial health outcomes in adults that have more than 4 cups of coffee in a day. But here's the big one, really. Kids 12 to 18, they don't recommend even 100 milligrams in a day. So big difference there. So again, kids 12 to 18 should be having less than 100 milligrams, according to both the FDA and the American Academy of Pediatrics. Now, they say kids who are 10 to 11 could have up to about 85 milligrams, should have no more than that in a day. And the American Academy of Pediatrics says there's no safe amount for kids who are under 12 years old. And so erring on the side of caution, it seems like in the youth, we should really limit caffeine intake. But what's really going on here? So what are some of the common negative effects that these kids are reporting, right? And that they're noting in kids with higher caffeine intake? Things like irritability, right? Things like nausea, restlessness, urge to urinate, right? Increased risk for osteoporosis and ulcers and cardiovascular issues. Okay, and one of the really big ones here is sleep disturbance. And that majorly depends, though, on the time of the day that they're consuming the caffeine, obviously, right? And so if they had it first thing in the morning, I would doubt that it would be causing sleep disturbance. But looking at another study, very, very interestingly, they showed that kids that have a lower caffeine intake, on average, have greater knowledge regarding sleep and bone health. Okay? And they have a better understanding of what a healthy diet is regarding sleep health. Okay, now however exactly they map that out. And the study could be flawed, as many of them of course are, but we're just hitting you with a bunch of studies here, what the research says. So lastly, all right, the final study we'll reference here was done on a bunch of high school students, and I believe it was in New Zealand, majorly also Australia, whatever, but a bunch of kids. And they wanted to see their subjective report of what they felt with higher or lower caffeine intake. Okay, and the average caffeine intake, I believe, was 68 milligrams daily. So not that much in these kids. 56% of them reported increased energy levels. So that's a good thing. 54% of them reported being excited. That's another good thing. 45% of them reported irritability. Okay, that's obviously not as good of a thing. 44% an urge to urinate, and 41% sleep disturbance. So sleep disturbance was the lowest here. And again, it really depends on the time of the day. So what's kind of the big picture here? Well, if you want to be really safe, first off, if your kid's going to drink some coffee, well, definitely don't have it later in the day, right? But if they have it in the morning, you probably, again, won't run into that sleep disturbance issue. And to err on the side of caution, definitely limit at least, maybe not cups of coffee as much, or I should say a cup, but energy drinks. So these kids are primarily drinking things like energy drinks and soda. And what do they have in them? A whole bunch of other shit, right? And so they have all this other crap, this added sugar, this sucralose, right? That's killing your gut bacteria, causing DNA damage, having harmful effects on the body. Aspartame. I mean, all these awful things are in them aside from the caffeine. So it really goes much further than just looking at the scope of the effect of caffeine, on general health in these kids. But again, if you want to err on the side of caution, really just limit it, right? Is really my take on this. When it comes to adults, again, there are beneficial health outcomes with people that have more than 4 cups of coffee in a day. And that's a good amount of caffeine. And that should be more than that 400 milligram mark. The average is like 90 to 100 milligrams of caffeine in a cup, but it varies widely. If you get a triple espresso Americano from Starbucks, you can have 300 something milligrams in it, right? And so it doesn't seem as much like caffeine itself is evil, at least in adults. Okay, and how does caffeine work? So the way caffeine works, its major mechanism of action is that it binds to adenosine receptors in the brain. Adenosine normally binds these receptors, and it makes you tired. Now, caffeine has a greater affinity for these adenosine receptors, and so by competitive inhibition, or basically by having greater affinity for them, or the receptors like caffeine more, right, we could say, than adenosine, the caffeine binds to these receptors and blocks adenosine from binding them, so it keeps us awake. That's one. Two, it inhibits an enzyme called phosphodiesterase. And without understanding what the name is, it doesn't really matter, it reverts cyclic AMP back to AMP. So cyclic adenosine monophosphate back to adenosine monophosphate. Does phosphodiesterase. And caffeine blocks that. And why is that important? Well, by blocking that, what happens is it keeps cyclic AMP in its cyclic form instead of letting it go back to AMP. And by keeping it in its cyclic form, that promotes the release of epinephrine, aka adrenaline. Okay, and so this is something that can also give you energy, and the excitedness comes from the release of dopamine and serotonin and good endorphins as well with caffeine intake. But this is majorly what's responsible for the fat-burning effect of caffeine. And sources differ in how much caffeine they say somebody needs to have to promote fat burning. Some say any amount of caffeine, and we've done a video on this in One Wellness, will boost metabolism and promote fat burning. Others say 1.36 milligrams per pound of body weight. You look at Super U, it has 324.5 milligrams of pure caffeine in the form of dicaffeine malate, 433 milligrams. It's 75% caffeine, the rest is malic acid, right? And so that would promote fat burning, blocking phosphodiesterase very reliably at 239-pound person, right? And so you'll get that fat burning effect. But again, sources differ. Some say, you get the fat burning effect at lower doses. Now, it also affects calcium absorption, but this is at really high doses. So the whole thing of increasing their risk for osteoporosis and decreased bone mineral density and ulcers, I would think that's at much higher doses, right? So it's not so black and white, you guys. You look up research on this stuff. Make sure you type in scholarly articles after whatever you're looking up, because they're the most reliable sources. NCBI, NIH, PubMed, all those kinds of sources. And those are ones really we like to reference. Healthline is good because they use a lot of those sources, right? They're trusted sources. And, be careful, because you can look something up. You get the whole wrong idea if you're just a Google pop search person and look at it and that's it. That's your opinion, right? So that's what we got for you guys today. Caffeine, not so evil, probably beneficial for people that are in their adulthood. But for kids who are 12 to 18, maybe not the best for them to have a lot. And kids under 12, probably just try and avoid it. All right. Who do we got on here? Let's say what's up to all the homies, my friends. We're happy today, baby. Surprise, surprise. We always happy up in here. Love doing One Wellness. Love living. Pelaverde, Nick, what's up? Jimstagram, love it. Tommy Reed, Eagle, Dave, be some nice. I did some back and buys today, man. It was good. Way to pull ups. Sabia, what's up, baby girl? How you doing? Unknown selfie. All right. Good to see you on here, I think, for the first time. As for now. So we got for you, folks. We'll see you tomorrow, baby. Not sure where, not sure when, but we'll see you then. Have an amazing day today. Thank you guys so much. Happy One Wellness. We'll see you tomorrow.